So my name is Amy. I have been diagnosed with anxiety, depression and post-traumatic stress disorder. It took me a long time to open up about it and talk to people about it. So I told my family when I was like 17, 18 and had mostly got myself together a bit. At which point I went to see my doctor and he referred me to Healthy Minds, which was kind of the adult services for mental health in Birmingham. And he referred me at kind of 17 and a half, 18, knowing that it was the adult services, knowing that I wouldn't have any chance of getting into child services before I turned 18. So I went to Birmingham Healthy Minds for one session, and they said, okay, you are not currently suicidal, you are not currently planning your suicide. If you wanted to commit suicide, you don't have the means and the method readily available. So we're not going to help you because there are people at higher risk, which I fully understand. There was people at higher risk, but when I was 6 months down the line and those emotions had grown and I was suicidal, that could have been prevented 6 months prior had they done something more then. But, you know, I understand that it was out of their hands and that they have to go through that process because the resources are so limited. My most recent treatment and experience is to do with my post-traumatic stress disorder, which I developed a year and a half ago following a stroke. So I had a stroke at the age of 19. I remember feeling very poorly and having the worst headache I'd ever had for about 4 or 5 days. And then came to one night, Tuesday night, I just felt so awful. I couldn't keep myself awake. I tried to go to my bathroom in my house and I slipped on the way. It was completely how you see the stroke adverts, that one half of my body just went completely floppy and I didn't realise that it was happening. It was only when the people in my house heard the bang on the bathroom floor that they realised it was me on the bathroom floor. So I was rushed into hospital and then I don't remember the next kind of 12 hours. And then I woke up completely paralysed, couldn't talk, couldn't move, but could understand absolutely everything. And the problem was that the doctors and nurses didn't know that I could understand everything. So I had nurses coming up to me telling me, you know, Amy, this is your mum. And I was like, I know it's my mum, but I couldn't tell them it was my mum. And that was the most frustrating thing, that I was trapped inside myself. So I spent 12 days in hospital. I got a bit better. And when I came out of hospital, I then had this horrible feeling that every time I went to sleep, I would wake up in that paralysed state and not be able to speak and not be able to move, and that was terrifying. So for several months I had night terrors where I would have nightmares about not just being paralysed but something happening to me because it was so unexpected. I had these night terrors that somebody was going to throw me into the back of a van to hurt me, or I was going to be hit by a bus, or just every way you could think of dying would happen to me, and I was terrified. I would be punching and kicking and screaming in my sleep without realising I was doing it. So it was really scary and I had insomnia because of it. So I obviously went to my doctor because of this, because that's not normal, you can't cope with life like that. So I went to my doctor, he referred me again to Healthy Minds, and they put me on a course of online cognitive behavioural therapy, which I found I could see how it could help people and I could see the benefits to it. But for me personally, I become most depressed when I'm left to myself, to my own thoughts, because then I get really stuck in my own head and I need somebody else to snap me out of it. Part of the online cognitive behavioural therapy was that it said questions like, what upsets you the most? You know, what would make you want to kill yourself? And having to sit there on your own and think about these things just made the kind of depressive feelings worse. So it's very isolating for me, and it was backed up by fortnightly phone calls with a counsellor that I'd never seen her face and I didn't know her, and bless her, she did everything she could. But for me, it just wasn't the right treatment and it didn't help. So I discharged myself from that, went back to my GP, and he said, we've got this new thing called Forward Thinking in Birmingham, which is a crossover service from children's to adult services, which is for 16 to 25s, and it might help you a bit more. So I have self-referred to them because he said my GP felt that if he referred or if I referred, it would do the exact same job, and he had a lot of stuff to do, so it was just quicker for me to self-refer. I've self-referred to there, and I'm just waiting for a call back.